Well, I mean, let's not beat around the bush. The sixth mass extinction is upon us. We're in it now. And I think, even for those climate deniers, I mean, it's very real. I mean, I did a podcast actually with Paul Polman, which will be coming out later on in the autumn. And I was sitting in France and the hillside was on fire. Not my immediate hillside, but the one over. So I literally was keeping an eye out for black smoke, and the fires in southern France, is particularly if there's a Mistral wind, they go so fast. I mean, it's very frightening. And Paul was in the States, and he had a huge storm going on. I mean, where he was quite remote, it had a generator, but basically all the phone lines were taken out. And then, we had basically our podcast was terminated, and we were talking about climate change, and it was this really kind of like eerie moment that, we were both at effects. We were thousands of miles away, but this was very real. And we then said, okay, let's try and kind of reconnect a bit later, if the fire didn't take over and stuff. And, I texted him and can we come back on? And he's like, no, the storm got worse. And then he texted me a picture of his car, and a tree had fallen on his car. I mean, that's the reality. And I think, developed countries have traditionally just been better at fixing the problem. Right? But the thing is, it's so bad now that we can't ignore it. And also, I think what we're seeing is America waking up, thank God, because I think the rest of us, whether we live in Europe or Africa or Asia, have actually, or Southern America, actually have been really seeing what's happening. But I mean, this past year has been unprecedented. And I mean, what is extraordinary is like the hurricane that just recently hit the States. I mean, they were expecting it to land in New Orleans and Louisiana, who normally are incredibly hard hit. And we all know what happened, several years ago when New Orleans was pretty much wiped out. But, it landed up in New York. I mean, over 40 people died in New York in basement flats. I mean, in New York, they are basically saying that no one can live in a basement flat. I mean, if you've invested your money in a basement flat, you're really screwed. And I think, in a way, we kind of need this to happen, because we need like centers of power to really experience this, because then they'll take it seriously. And as I said, I mean, Americans are waking up super fast. And I mean, like, I spoke to a friend who lives in Lake Tahoe yesterday. She's had to move out. I mean, Lake Tahoe is on fire. I mean, this is, so coming back to your question about the sixth mass extinction, it's not like when, it's like happening now. And, and I think what is different about this from the other extinctions is this is caused by humanity. I mean, the others were caused by mass events and the earth changing, but, this is caused by us. I mean, effectively. And, you can argue, what you like, but we're 100% responsible for this. And yes, there may be small kind of issues, but if you actually look at the fact, we've burst through our planetary boundaries, it's unsustainable the way that we live, and we have to change that rapidly, whether it's by looking at carbon footprints, buying differently, that kind of stuff. We've all got to take responsibility. And certainly, we do need governments to move, and we need to lobby them to move. We need businesses to move. It's not just enough to be sustainable. You've got to be regenerative now, and each and every one of us need to take responsibility as well. But, we can't, we need to do that in partnership, because, just a single action, I mean, is very important by all of us. And if we accumulate those actions, but we need to do it together. And I think that's my greatest fear at the moment, is like, we're not doing things together. People are arguing, bickering, NGOs are doing one thing, another NGO is doing another, but we all need to come together and really work on this and have a mega game plan to do this. But I'm really hopeful we can do this. The problem is, I think with the problem, and the upside with human beings is that, we need things to get super bad before we act, right? And we have extraordinary powers as human beings and our creativity to change things and to innovate. But it's normally when kind of, excuse my language, but the shit's hitting the wall, and it's like we could have done this a bit earlier. We've had warnings about climate change pretty much for the last kind of 50 years, and it's like, I mean, come on, like time to wake up big time and time to hold people to account.
It's not an old problem. It really isn't. And I mean, I saw this video, I think yesterday or the day before, about the floods in New York, and somebody was literally walking through their basement flat, which had about, and I'd say like a half a meter or so, or a meter perhaps of water in the bottom. So it was flooded properly. And this person was just looking around at all the things that were obstructed, and they were walking out of it. And just as they were walking out of it, this was a security camera in the corner of the room, the wall collapsed. The sidewall collapsed and the water just came flooding in. So luckily the person was out of the room by the time that it happened. But I mean, that is, and I know, for example, that this specific, video caught a lot of people's attention in terms of the realities. Like that person could have died there. That's what you could have seen.
I mean, this is an everyday occurrence in Southern Africa and parts of Mozambique, floods after floods, If you live in Bangladesh, this is something that you experience. I mean, if you live in some of these low-lying islands like the Seychelles and stuff, I mean, the Maldives, I mean, you're on high alert for this pretty much every day of your life. And actually, I think it's in a sense, and in Germany, I mean, just the terrible floods in Northern Europe, which were appalling, and it's, so we're actually experiencing what a lot of the world has experienced. And it's tragic, but I really hope that there is a waking of deep empathy, and actually it's not happening kind of over there where you can kind of blindly sort of not, go, oh gosh, that's awful. But, we're all in this together. We've only got one planet. And actually, as Paul Parman says, you cannot have healthy people living on an unhealthy planet. We have to fix this.